Hello everyone, I am Janardhan VP, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Vanisakara Government Postgraduate College. In this video, we are going to analyze the poem Caller by George Herbert. Before we analyze the poem, let me give you a small introduction about the author or the poet George Herbert. George Herbert, born in 1593, George Herbert was the son of a noble family which was known for its support and patronage of the arts and literature. After gaining a BA and an MA, was made a tutor, a lecturer, and finally the university orator in 1620. George Herbert, English religious poet, a major metaphysical poet, and also notable for the purity and effectiveness of his choice of words. And now, before we analyze the poem, let us understand what is the meaning of the word caller that has been used in the title of the poem. Caller means Herbert tries to use this title as a pun. Collar means actually a band of leather that surrounds an animal neck or a slave collar because Herbert thinks of himself as a slave to the Lord. Introduction to the poem. For George Herbert, poetry is religion and religion is poetry. He believed that a man should dedicate all his gifts to God's service. The caller exemplifies spiritual conflict, the difficult, lifelong struggles of Christian faith presented in terms of metaphysical wit and conceits. It can be said that all the leading metaphysical characteristics like dramatic opening, argumentative approach, colloquial tone, or concrete imagery epitomize in this single poem. Critical appreciation of the poem. The word caller in the title symbolizes the priest's role as servant. Ironically written, the caller is in fact about the struggle to maintain faith in God. Poem itself calls the ravings of a person who is rebellious against the restrictive pressures that surround him as a priest. The poem shows that the poet is involved in a deep-rooted and desperate struggle with his own soul. He doubts whether God exists at all and gives a rebellious expression against the disciplines of his vocation of priesthood. In the first stanza, the poet states the opening of the poem goes abrupt and dramatic, evoking violent action, and is delivered in a personal and colloquial manner. The opening stanza is a complaint voiced by a person embittered against the constraints that bind him. Impatient with his condition, he therefore resolves to break free. In the second stanza, takes on more personal notes. The poet questions whether he, being priest, does not deserve any reward. Using the image of harvest, the poet laments that as a clergy, his only harvest has been a thorn that has made him bleed. His sighs and tears have made him ruin the fruits of his labor. Third stanza is about the lamentation, continues in the third stanza as well. This time, the poet compares his own restrained life. There is this error of spelling mistake that has WON it instead of OWN to the free life of other people who enjoy worldly pleasures. He argues that he also has the right to crown him with the beauty of life and enjoy flowers and garlands. Growing a little more furious, the poet hints at the future and expresses the hope that all is not lost. Fourth stanza. In the fourth stanza, the poet becomes almost aggressive, wishes to recover all that has been lost, indulging himself in double pleasures. In fact, this is the most paradoxical stanza which offers the core meaning of the poem. The metaphors like cage or rope of sands, through which Herbert explains his restrictions, have double meanings. On the surface, as Herbert says that it is his petty thoughts which make the cage or rope of sands feel like a good cable which draws him towards God. But looking from the deeper point of view, it can be said that what Herbert shouts boastfully from the beginning is itself the results of petty thoughts. Fifth stanza. The poet crucially loses hold on his own arguments. Herbert now declares to quit his profession and thus overcome his fears altogether. Ironically, he discloses his shortcomings by showing his own inability to shoulder the responsibility of his vocation. Herbert loses all grounds and proves that the problem is not with the profession of priest, rather with the personality he is carrying inside. Sixth stanza. The last stanza is a resultant anticlimax. The poet is able to come out all his petty thoughts and hears his voice of God calling, "Child," and to which he responds, "My Lord." Instantly, the distressed note in the poet is silenced and the disconnect is passed. God does not need to answer the arguments raised by the poet. His mere presence exposes their hollowness. Therefore, hearing the voice of God, the poet recognizes his place and position and immediately surrenders himself to the authority of God. Thus, the final stanza very beautifully leads to a graceful conclusion, making the readers realize the affectionate relationship between Creator and the creation. Thank you very much.